Welcome to our presentation. Our project was done on invasive species management of the nature study area. I'm Jonathan Herrin.
And I'm Bradham.
Thank you.
So our project, like you said, was to control the invasive species at the nature study area. We focused on the boardwalk and a little bit at the main gate by Lakeside. But our main objective was to work in half-chain increments off the boardwalk, since that's an area that students frequently use, and we wanted to improve the visibility as you go down the boardwalk. Our stakeholder was Dr. Lane, and she worked with us by instructing us on the species she wanted to focus on, and she also showed us an area on the back side of the nature study area where there's a big camphor tree that had small plants surrounding it that she also wanted treated.
Yeah, like he said, it's just been a mess for a while. You can ride on the dirt road and clearly see the Chinese privet domes out there in the middle of the stand. Nobody wants to see that. So our project was just simply to eliminate those areas.
And it also provided an area for growth for the native species.
Yeah, clearly. And this is just a map of the NSA, as you can see. And the pond, I wish I'd have blew this up a little bigger, but it's right through here. And we all know there's a boardwalk that, sorry. But there's a boardwalk that surrounds this pond. And that was our main area of focus. We chose to do a half a chain away from the boardwalk to target those species. That give us enough room to get a bunch done in our 10 hours that was required, and still, leave some for the other students to do maybe next year in the other classes.
Since we tried to measure a specific distance to go off the boardwalk, it should be really easy for next year's students to start right where we left off, so that all the work it shows, rather than if they were to pick a random area in the nature study area, because there's a couple of Chinese tallow here and there and they couldn't see where we ended, then it wouldn't be as effective or as good of a use for their time. So, which we've kind of alluded to already, but the status of the stand was it was nearly out of control. The invasive species were overwhelming the stand with the tallow and privet and everything like that. So what we really wanted to do was essentially restore the historic native plants that you would see there before the invasive species came in and dominated the stand.
Choosing the proper PPE is very important in any situation. Here we mainly use, long sleeve shirt, long pants, because drift wasn't a major problem. We chose to do the cut stump method, which we'll get to that later. But anyway, so when you're spraying low to the ground like that, you have a very low chance of drift. So as far as the herbicide getting on us, we really don't have any problem with that. But if one wanted to, they could wear glasses, or you could even argue the fact of wearing snake chaps just because you're in the woods. But yeah, for the most part, like I said, just long pants, long shirts, maybe long socks and a pair of boots was most of our PPE.
We actually found out that boots were the most important tool we had, because it was nearly knee deep in some places in mud out there.
For sure, for sure.
So the main target species that we found out there was Chinese privet and Chinese tallow. We also treated, like we said earlier, the camphor tree that's in the back of the nature study area by the farm, and a few pecan trees that were up by the main gate at Lakeside. But the overwhelming amount of time that we spent was Chinese privet and Chinese tallow, because it'll shoot up anywhere, and that's what was really blocking the view and overwhelming the native species.
And as far as the pecan tree goes here specifically, we actually did a hack and squirt technique on it, so the stem is still standing, and that could be used for woodpeckers or any other insects or animals, I guess you could say, that would want to use that dead stem. As far as the others, those were treated with a cut stump method, and we'll get to all that, but I just wanted to highlight that the pecan tree is still standing. As far as precautionary activities go, we tried to flag any species that was in what I considered a vulnerable area. Say if we get in the middle of a Chinese privet dome and there's 4 or 5, white oaks in there, we don't want to kill those, so we try to flag them if we could. Some stuff wasn't flagged, of course, but anything that we knew, we spotted immediately, said, hey, we're going to be working in this area, we're going to be applying herbicides, it does not need to get on this, we flagged.
So mixing herbicides is a very important part. It's a crucial step when you're working with herbicides or pesticides or anything like that, Because if you use too high of a concentration, you're at risk of having it leach into the soil and remaining active in the soil for a long time. And of course, it's not cost effective if you're using more herbicide than you actually need. So since the calculations can be kind of confusing sometimes, we used a chart like this one here, and it will spell out for most of your usual volumes, your gallon, 25 gallons, or whatever you're using, and it gives you the common mix ratios to make sure that you got it right.
And you can, too, I'd like to add, you can a lot of times find these charts on your herbicide container. Roundup, for example, they actually have a chart on the back. So look out for that if you're using herbicides.
If you took Dr. Lauert's silviculture class, you remember how important it is to read the label.
Read the label. As far as applying the herbicides go, as we mentioned before, we did a cut stump method. So we cut the stumps, as you can see here, very low to the ground and applied the herbicide directly on top of that stump. The main reason for this is Chinese privet likes to stump sprout. And if you spray a foliar herbicide, you'll kill that one stem and the plant will just resprout from the stump. So once you cut it off low and spray the stump, it's going to kill it. It's going to kill it every time.
So here's just a video of Jonathan actually using the cut stump method. A key thing to look out for is you want to cut the stump as low as possible. If nothing else, it decreases the risk of tripping when other students go through there. And for our tools we use to hatch it, you could use loppers or anything else that's easy for you. We just found that since there was so many plants in this area, with a hatchet you can go through really quickly and cut them all down. So that's what worked best for us, but if you were to ever repeat a project like this, you could definitely experiment with other tools to see what works best for everyone.
So you could argue a chainsaw in some instances. Like you said, we just chose to use hand tools. And now we have a video of Will actually applying the herbicide. As you can see, the stems were cut low. He's just spraying right on top of the plant. And just for our stakeholders' sake, you can see this is triclopyr here. And this area, Dr. Lane told us in the back near the camphor that it was okay to use the triclopyr on the camphor. There wasn't any species at risk back there that we'd be hurt with the triclopyr. But for the entire project in its entity, we used glyphosate, a 30% solution.
That's because Dr. Lane said that it would be less soil active, and it would, so of course it would protect the species that were in close proximity with the plants we were treating. So for our future plans, me and Jonathan actually will be in Mr. Hall's fire ecology class next semester, where they plan on putting fire through there, which will help control the underbrush and open up that stand even more for students. And then next year, Dr. Lane likely is going to send students in her recreation class back out to that area where they can continue our line. Like we said earlier, we're working half a chain increments from the boardwalk, so they can start right where we left off and eventually hopefully remove all the invasive species from that stand all the way up from lakeside to the farm road.
Yeah, the key word there in NSA is nature study area. So having a clean environment and a natural looking stand is beneficial to the students in numerous ways as far as dendro goes or anything like that. So maybe in the future years they clean it up some more and it starts to look a little bit better. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you coming.